It is time that we had a talk. A real talk.
Hello, and welcome to Star Wars Real Talk. Today we're going to talk about something that I think a lot of people are sleeping on, that being the new anime Star Wars project coming this September. It is going to do more for the Star Wars universe than we can even imagine, and this is why. When we look at every addition to the Star Wars portfolio, I like to step back and think about what it's done to add to the Star Wars universe. What new characters, planets, and stories has it added to the fold? Now, something to consider, not all that is new is good. I don't think we need to go down that path here today, but something I think the Star Wars production team has suffered from is walking the fine line between new content and fan service. They give us a new story with new characters, but there's almost always a level of familiarity tied in so as to incline people to watch it. Take for example the most recent projects, The Mandalorian and The Bad Batch. Both were new stories but carried familiarity in them in order to retain the current Star Wars fanbase. The Mandalorian featured a new character, but he was from a well-known planet with a fully established culture. He meets another new character, but he looks just like another character that we know well. Same with Din. He shares a striking resemblance to an already established fan favorite, doesn't he? While the story follows these two for the most part, the writers couldn't help themselves but throw in more fan favorites to boost enjoyment levels. And I'm not saying at all that this is a bad thing and that it didn't serve to move the story along. It just seems somewhat unnecessary, and I could easily see Din and Grogu telling their own story without the use of "it's a small world, isn't it?" and "worlds colliding" to excite the viewer. The Bad Batch followed a group of clone troopers that were introduced in Clone Wars Season 7. What made them unique was their specific mutations and how it enhanced their combat potential. But in 16 episodes, the show did little to develop their characters, and the Batch just seemed to go wherever the wind took them, with little to do with story progression. Some of the most exciting episodes, however, were the ones that included already established fan favorites. I'm not saying The Bad Batch was a bad show, I'm just saying it feels like the writers can't help themselves but include these cameos in order to make the show seem relevant and important to the Star Wars universe. And don't get me wrong, I love these cameos, but part of me wonders if the creators at Disney are so scared to drop the ball with Star Wars that they tell stories with a safety net on them. They're new stories, sure, but they're always kind of within the realm of our understanding. Here's a scene of Luke, but not too much, we don't want to screw him up. Here's a scene of Vader, but not too much, we don't want to screw him up. It just feels like fan favorites are sprinkled in here and there just to add extra life to the show. Again, nothing wrong with this. I loved everything to do with Luke and Vader added within recent Star Wars content. We just need to be careful that we aren't doing that in place of writing an actually good episode. Lately, I'm of the opinion that a show should be able to carry itself without the injection of already told Star Wars stories. When I think of the pinnacle of Mandalorian Season 2, I think of Luke Skywalker, not the main character. I believe Din could easily have carried the weight of the pinnacle just fine on his own. But as soon as the fan favorite enters the scene, the viewer is flooded with fond memories of the past and stops focusing on what's right in front of them, similar to using an established theme song in another setting to replicate or falsify a feeling. And I actually cover this whole subject in another video here. If you want to watch it, the link will be in the description. My point again is that it feels like the writing team itself must feel this pressure to keep the fans happy and keep working all these connections and cameos and settings into new Star Wars projects. Don't get me wrong, I'm all for a connecting universe, but I also want to learn about new people and their journeys in the galaxy, not see more of who I already know. And not only characters, but themes and places seem to be recycled as well. A ragtag group of rebels fighting the system, a fallen hero set on vengeance and justice. Hey look guys, we're on Tatooine again. Oh, look at that, it's Kamino. You guys love Kamino, right? We keep getting new Star Wars, but it feels a lot like the same stuff recycled over and over again. That isn't to say that I'm unhappy with current Star Wars content. I can't ever say Star Wars content without feeling like Mike Zero. That's not the case at all. I eagerly awaited every episode of Mando and Bad Batch before it came out. I reflected, made predictions, theories, and was heavily invested in both of them. I'm just saying that I long for new Star Wars stories, not the same story from yet another angle. To be fair, I haven't given the High Republic a chance yet, and learning about the Old Republic is on my to-do list, but today we're not talking about that. We're talking about new Star Wars content. We're talking about Star Wars Visions. At first, I was bitter about the fact that it wasn't going to be canon. I was of the mindset that, how can you make new Star Wars content that's not canon? What's the point? And then I came to the realization that, oh wait, this is actually amazing. This is the best possible thing that could happen to Star Wars right now. Not bogged down by any status quo or what's expected of a Star Wars story, the Visions teams and producers have free reign to make whatever the heck they want. No fear of fans being at each other's throats over what's canon or not having to worry about contradictions or whether or not they really did a character justice in this different media setting. No fear of it not meeting their fans' expectations. No pressure to work in cameos in familiar settings to keep it relevant. We are finally going to get new plot lines on unheard of planets, brand new adventures and universal laws to the galaxy, new characters to develop and stories to be told. Viewers will get 9 stories to take in, digest, and analyze. 9 new Star Wars universes to explore and think about. Imaginations can run wild again as we consider what these new galaxies were like, and if it were canon, what it would mean to the already established universe. You could argue that there's nothing wrong with harmless cameos and recycling storylines here and there, but I would argue that there is. The spotlight immediately moves away from the protagonist and onto the featured character. The problem is that it's a lot easier for the writers to make an episode of anything seem good instead of actually writing a good episode. Yes, the two can exist in the same, but it comes across as kind of lazy to me. It's much harder to tell a new story and make us care about new characters than to bring in an already established fan favorite. I always think back to the sequels and how much I wish they had just left the original cast of characters in the OT, preserve their legacy there. We've seen how south it can go. We have to ask ourselves, were the cameos worth it? Was that short-term happiness of seeing them on the big screen again worth the years of wondering what could have been and mourning the missed opportunities? Could we not have been introduced to new mentors for the main cast of the sequels to fall in love with? A new villain that you love to hate, instead of a recycled one whose story has already been told? Just my thoughts anyway. I'm relieved that Star Wars Visions has nothing like this happening in it, to my knowledge anyway. With the exception of a couple well-known figures on Tatooine who I can't imagine will have much involvement in a story about a rock band making it big on a sand planet. From what we know so far, I'm not expecting any fan service, cameos, or recycled storytelling. A fresh, new start. I'm just really looking forward to it. Just a bit of a disclaimer here, I am making a lot of assumptions about Star Wars Visions, and I could definitely be proven wrong within a few weeks here. And I should also say, should these things happen, it's not going to ruin the shows, and it could still be done very well. I'm just trying to emphasize how badly we need new stories and characters to fall in love with. And I think Visions will do just that. The OT was its own trilogy with unique characters and storylines. The prequel was its own trilogy with its own characters and stories. Very different from the OT, however, which some argue made it worse than the original trilogy, but I think most celebrate the differences and enjoy them as their own individual stories. The sequels didn't really know what it wanted to be, so it took elements and stories and characters from the OT, which is why I don't think it ever stood a chance. It never had a chance to go in its own direction and tell its story from the start, which is exactly my point. The OT and the prequels were new Star Wars, with new everything in it except for the familiarity of the universe and the Skywalker name. Visions is going to give us that for the first time in a long time. Another reason why Visions is going to have such a large impact on the Star Wars universe is just the existence of itself. Star Wars Visions is bridging gaps in cultures from across the world to our own. Eastern and Western cultures merge into what I'm predicting will be a masterpiece. For many people, Visions will be their introduction to the Star Wars universe, which is a huge thing in itself, especially since it's coming with a Japanese dub as well, which I'm really excited about. George was always really influenced by Japanese culture, and it was a massive influence on the Jedi and Sith that we have today. It's just so perfect that the samurai culture that inspired a big part of what Star Wars is finally getting its attention. Star Wars has always been deeply rooted in this type of culture, and it's nice to see it return there again. Imagine a whole universe where this culture merge can thrive. Science fiction meets Greek mythology, meets Western culture, meets Japanese culture, and it's just going to feel so right. On the flip side, Star Wars Visions is also going to be an introduction for many to the anime universe and forms of Japanese culture, which in itself is an endless form of entertainment and media for the world to enjoy. Maybe it will encourage people not to judge each other as much for their interests in entertainment. The anime community is arguably just as large as the Star Wars community, and I think a merger of the two is going to do incredible things for both of them. Imagine the potential there for creativity, fan fiction, art, cosplay, theories, music, collaborations, conventions. Who knows where it ends? So no, it's not just an anime Star Wars project. It's so much more than that. It's a merging of communities, cultures, and a fresh start for the Star Wars universe. That's going to do it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Hit a like if you enjoyed it, comment if you have an opinion of your own that you'd like to share, and consider subscribing if you want more content like this and you want to join the Discord and join our community. The link for that will be in the description. Lastly, I started a new YouTube channel, and I would really appreciate your support there. If you wanted to click the link in the description and subscribe, I would really appreciate that. Huge shout out to these High Council members, and if you want to support the channel like them, the link will be in the description, and I'll add your name to this list. May the Force be with you.